So Life by You has been cancelled again. Cancelled is a bit clickbaity. It was delayed. It was first due for early access release in September last year, I believe, or was it November? I forgot by now. Anyway, clearly it wasn't ready. We saw based on the gameplay previews that we've seen, like it just doesn't look ready. So they've basically held it back and they said they were going to be releasing it this year, very early on this year. And now it's been delayed again. It's important to note when I say release, I don't actually mean a full release. I mean early access release. So instead of coming soon, it's now coming in June. It's coming on the 4th of June, unless they do it a third time. There's ever so much of a chance that they may delay it a third time. Who knows? I'll be honest with you guys, taking a look at the game, I personally don't think it's ready. I feel like it looks like there are so many snagging issues, which, you know, maybe just very, very little things, but I feel like they've just kind of built up over time. The game doesn't really look very polished right now, as we all know. I think early access is such like a new thing in the video gaming world that nobody really knows like what should an early access game actually be. Obviously an early access game is bound to be buggy and glitchy because it literally is just early access. They haven't obviously ironed out all the problems with it. They haven't completed the game. But does that mean that an early access game should be totally unplayable? Should it be like mostly playable to the point where you can basically do anything with some snagging issues? Obviously these days video games in general, they do just release with a ton of bugs and glitches. It's the brand new meta for video games. Every single publisher releases their game too early. The game gets really very, very bad criticism and then the game flops and it just goes on and on and on. And it's something that we're seeing with all developers, literally every single one of them. Paradox also recently published City Skylines 2 recently, which was very, very overhyped. It was going to be the biggest, best build simulator ever. And then we all played it and it was very buggy and it performed bad and it didn't really have as many features as we all kind of hoped. And a lot of people went back to City Skylines 1. And now, despite all of the hyping and everybody getting so excited, it's ended up with a negative taste in a lot of City players' mouths. And a lot of people are quite annoyed with the game and probably aren't going to invest in the game and its future DLC just because it had an awful launch. Despite the fact that having an awful launch means your game performs terribly, I know, shock horror, lots of video game developers still release them in an awful state. It's a current trend. Life by You could have done that too. They could have released it as planned and it would have been awful and everybody would have been put off by it and maybe the development studio would have been shut down, but they've decided to delay it again. I said when it was delayed the first time, I was actually really happy that it was delayed because I did not want to have a horrible broken game on my hands. So I'm actually glad that they've delayed it a second time now, just because I just feel like it needs so much more work. My personal issue, like regardless of obviously like all of the bugginess and clunkiness that we're seeing in their gameplay previews that they're uploading on YouTube, my personal biggest thing is that Life by You doesn't really have an identity right now. I know that's like a really cheesy specific thing to say, but like I know the marketing for it is supposed to be like Life by You, you do your own thing, whatever. I just personally feel like it needs to have more character and identity to it. I don't know how you feel about that. Right now we're seeing a lot of gameplay features. There's a lot of life simulation gaming features, but it's like, you know, right now it just kind of feels like a collection of gameplay features, but not a game. Does that make any sense to you? I hope that makes sense. I just feel like they've gone, okay, these are the key features of a life simulation game. Let's put them all together. But that doesn't necessarily make a game, in my opinion. That just makes a collection of gameplay features compiled together in an engine. Like they're two very different things in my eyes. I don't know how you guys think about that. Like that's such a weird thing to say. Like I was really hoping this quest thing was going to do very, very well with Life by You, because obviously you can make your own quests. But it seems like a lot of the default ones are just things like plant flowers in your garden. But I just kind of feel like, why? Like, why am I doing that? Like, can I give my character like a lifelong goal? Can I give them midterm goals? I would love it if they put a lot of thought and effort into the characters that come with the base game of Life by You, who you'll be living with. And maybe you could have like very specific quests with them and maybe it will alter and change their lives in certain way. This is a kind of thing that I find really interesting. When I think of like the perfect life simulation game, I think of like wanting to simulate something like Desperate Housewives, where there's always so much drama and a lot of twists. And Life by You seems to have a very intricate conversation system, and it's got the quest editor and it's got the different kind of social relationships with the different chemistry systems. I just feel like, you know, I really want Life by You to be a Desperate Housewives simulator. I just think that would be so good. In terms of how they're actually going to be working on the game, they obviously haven't really given us many specifics. They've been kind of vague. One thing that we do know is that they're bringing in a little bit of violence into the game. They originally said there was going to be absolutely no death and violence, and then they've realized that actually this is what a lot of players want. Obviously, like, it's not going to be like GTA, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, this game will have kids. It's a life simulation game, so they have to be tasteful about it. I don't know exactly how it would work, if it's just maybe your characters could get into accidents and die in a certain way like they could do in The Sims. I'm not sure. But, you know, if I do look at The Sims, you guys know that I criticize the game a lot, but it definitely has character. Even though I hate this whole like goofy Sims 4 humor thing, I just find it so cringe. It is a part of its character, and you like know what The Sims is based on its character, not just the fact that it's a life sim game. Even Paralives is kind of shaping up to be like a chilled, cozy vibe. Inzoi seems to have an aesthetic or a character, but I don't feel like Life by You has much of a character as of yet. That's why I say it just feels like a collection of life simulation gaming features, but it doesn't really have a vibe. And most importantly, a meaning. That sounds so like American and deep. But I just feel like the more generic it is, the less meaningful it is. Like, I know Animal Crossing, okay, is like totally, like a totally different thing. It's like, it is technically a life sim, but it's very different. With a game like Animal Crossing, for example, like it has the goal of like upgrading your house and collecting things and meeting the different villagers. And like there's so many like goals and things you can do. Even in The Sims 4, like, even though I'd hate the lifetime aspiration system as it currently stands, there is a lifetime aspiration system which gives you traits which your Sims can use to improve their lives. I truly just believe Life by You needs three things. Firstly, it needs to iron out all the clunkiness, and it needs to feel like a sexy game, because right now I don't think it's very sexy, and I think we can all categorically agree. Secondly, I think Life by You needs a little bit more purpose and meaning, other than just being Life by You, a generic simulation game where you can do anything you want. Like, I want it to have a specific purpose and an identity. And thirdly, I want the character models to change, because I agree they do look horrendous. It's the eyes, okay? It's the eyes of the characters that I just find so funny. It's something about their eyes. I can't put my fingers on why. Not just the eyes, I just feel like the whole proportions are like they're so out of proportion. I'm curious what you guys think about an early access title and how buggy should it be, because obviously you have to accept them. I haven't really played that many early access titles, to be honest. I played City Skylines 2 in early access, and that was a little bit buggy, but mostly it was playable and you can pretty much do anything that you wanted to do in it. I played Coral Island in early access, and the game was basically done. They just needed to add the linear storyline and some other random things. They're the only two early access games I've played, so I can't really come out and give like a strong opinion on what an early access game should be, but in my personal opinion, I just feel like it needs to be playable but not complete. I still think that bugs and glitches should be a rarity in a game that's in early access. I feel like a game needs to be like 80 to 90% done, because if you do release a game that's just released way too early and it's very buggy, people are gonna get annoyed by it and they're just not gonna want to play it. They're not going to want to invest in the final product. And of course, people can leave reviews for early access games on Steam. It is technically labeled as early access reviews, but in order to actually see that, you have to go into the smaller details. So from just a general overview, the early access reviews kind of look mixed with normal reviews. It's hard to tell the difference. So it is a risk for video game developers, I think, to do early access, but I guess I don't know how it works financially. I guess funding for video game development these days is changing and people don't want to take on risks on a video game in case it flops. So now they don't have investors anymore. Instead, they have to make money through early access and things. And maybe that's why video games get released too early, because they just need to make the money ASAP and they can't fall short on their investment. And then it gets to the point where, well, so many people have pre-ordered it. If we just release it in its current state, we can make money and close the studio down and forget about it. There was a video game that did that recently. I completely forgot what it was. It was basically like a scam. Does anybody remember that? It was like a shooting zombie survival game. But it seems like Life by You are trying to avoid that kind of controversy, which is why I'm personally glad that it's been delayed. You guys let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.